The morning sky over Seoul turned red without warning. Hyunwoo Kim looked up from his workbench where he had been fixing another failed electromagnetic device. The red glow was not sunrise. It was something else entirely. Giant ships appeared, above every major city on Earth. They were larger than mountains and darker than storm clouds. The ships hung in the air without making any sound. People stopped walking. Cars stopped moving. Everyone looked up at the impossible sight. Hyunwoo worked as an engineer for the South Korean military. For 3 years, he had been trying to build weapons that could stop electronic devices from working. His commanders called his devices worthless. They preferred missiles and guns. But Hyunwoo kept working on them anyway. The alien ships began to move. Bright beams of light shot down from them. Every place the light touched exploded into flames. Military bases disappeared in seconds. Air Force jets fell from the sky like broken toys. The aliens had weapons that made human technology look like sticks and stones. Daeun Park was teaching archery to children when the invasion began. She had won medals in the Olympics using traditional Korean bows. Now she watched helplessly as modern fighter jets crashed around her archery range. The children screamed and ran toward the building for safety. "Stay calm," Daeun told them. But her own hands were shaking. She had seen war movies, but this was different. This was real. The alien soldiers came down from their ships in smaller flying vehicles. They wore armor that glowed with strange energy. When human soldiers shot at them with rifles, the bullets simply bounced off. The alien weapons fired beams of hot plasma that could melt through tank armor. Tae-ho Lee had fought in 3 wars during his military career. He was now 55 years old and worked as a security guard. But when the aliens landed in Seoul, his old training came back to him. He gathered civilians in the subway tunnels beneath the city. "Listen to me," Tae-ho told the frightened people. "The tunnels are deep and strong. The aliens cannot see us down here." The tunnels were built decades ago from iron and concrete. The metal in the walls seemed to confuse the alien scanning devices. Their ships could see through buildings, but not through the old subway system. Above ground, the world was ending. The aliens called themselves the Velkari Empire. Their leader, War Commander Thexnal, spoke to humans through hijacked television broadcasts. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "Your resistance is pointless," Thexnal announced. "We have conquered 847 worlds. You will surrender or you will die." Most governments tried to surrender within hours, but the aliens were not interested in quick peace. They wanted complete control. They began taking humans prisoner and destroying anything that looked like it could be used as a weapon. Hyunwoo watched the destruction from his underground laboratory. His electromagnetic devices were still running on backup power. He had built 12 of them, but they had never worked properly. They were supposed to stop enemy electronics, but they only created weak electrical pulses. A group of alien soldiers entered the building above his lab. Hyunwoo could hear their heavy footsteps and strange clicking language. He turned on one of his devices, hoping it might somehow help. The machine hummed quietly and sent out invisible waves. Suddenly, the alien footsteps stopped. Their voices became confused and angry. Something was wrong with their equipment. The electromagnetic pulse from Hyunwoo's failed device was interfering with their advanced technology. Daeun had taken the children to a safe building, but alien soldiers found them anyway. 3 tall Velkari warriors entered the room. Their armor glowed with protective energy fields. They carried weapons that looked like silver lightning bolts. One of the aliens pointed his weapon at Daeun. She had nothing to defend herself with, except her traditional Korean bow. It was made of wood, horn, and sinew using methods that were thousands of years old. Compared to alien technology, it was impossibly primitive, but Daeun had practiced with that bow for 20 years. Without thinking, she pulled an arrow from her quiver and shot it at the alien soldier. The arrow should have bounced off his energy shield like everything else. Instead, it went straight through the shield and stuck in the alien's armor. The Velkari soldier looked down at the wooden arrow in shock. His energy field flickered and died. The ancient Korean bow had somehow penetrated technology that could stop bullets and explosions. Taiho organized the civilians in the tunnels into groups. Some people wanted to stay hidden forever. Others wanted to fight back. Most thought fighting was impossible. The aliens had weapons that could destroy entire buildings. What could humans do against such power? "We use what we have," Taiho said. "Our enemies are strong, but they do not understand us." He began teaching people how to make simple weapons from materials they could find. Kitchen knives, steel pipes, anything sharp or heavy. The weapons looked useless against alien technology, but Taiho had learned something important during his years as a soldier. "Every enemy has weaknesses," he told his followers. "We just have to find them." Word spread quickly through the underground tunnels. Hyunwoo's electromagnetic devices could disrupt alien technology. Daeun's traditional bow could penetrate their shields. These discoveries gave people hope when hope seemed impossible. The aliens controlled the surface world. Their ships patrolled the skies. Their soldiers walked through empty streets. They had won the war in less than a day, but they had not defeated the human spirit. In his command ship, War Commander Thexnall reviewed the invasion reports. Everything had gone according to plan. Human military forces were destroyed. Government leaders were captured or killed. The Yao population was terrified and broken, but something bothered him. Small groups of humans were still fighting. They used primitive weapons that should not work against Velkari technology. Yet somehow, these weapons were causing problems. Thexnall decided these were just random incidents. Humans were too primitive to pose a real threat. He sent a report to the Velkari High Command saying that Earth's conquest was complete. Soon they would strip the planet of its resources and move on to the next world. But in the tunnels beneath, Seoul, Hyunwoo, Daeun, and Taiho were planning something different. They were going to show the aliens that humans had weapons the Velkari Empire had never encountered before. Not weapons of metal and energy, but weapons of will and determination. The invasion was over. The real war was about to begin. 3 months had passed since the Velkari invasion began. The aliens controlled every major city on Earth. Their soldiers patrolled the streets with glowing weapons. Their ships blocked out the sun. But something was not going as planned. Soo-jin. Choi worked in her family's blacksmith shop before the invasion. Now she worked in a hidden forge deep underground. Her father had taught her the old ways of making steel. She used techniques that were hundreds of years old to create arrows and blades. "Why do our weapons work against them?" asked Jaemin Yoon. He was a computer programmer who now helped coordinate resistance activities using old radio equipment. Soo-jin hammered hot metal while she answered. "My grandfather told me that the old ways have power the new ways have forgotten. Maybe the aliens forgot them too." The Velkari had destroyed all modern communication systems, but Jaemin discovered that old-style radio transmissions confused their monitoring equipment. The aliens had built their technology to intercept advanced digital signals. Simple radio waves from the 1950s were invisible to their systems. Mi Young-han had been a traditional medicine practitioner before the war. Now she treated wounded resistance fighters in secret clinics. The Velkari had deployed biological weapons, designed to attack human immune systems. But Mi Young's herbal remedies worked better than any modern medicine. They created poisons to fight pills and injections, Mi Young explained to her patients. But they never thought about plants and roots. Her treatments used ginseng, ginger, and dozens of other traditional Korean herbs. The alien bioweapons could neutralize human pharmaceuticals, but they had no defense against remedies that were thousands of years old. War Commander Thexnall stood in his command center looking at reports that made no sense. Human resistance should have ended weeks ago. Instead, it was growing stronger. His soldiers were being killed by weapons that should not work. "Explain this," he demanded, pointing at a tactical display. "How can primitive projectiles penetrate our energy shields?" His science officer, Velkan, had been studying captured human weapons. "The devices appear to operate on quantum frequencies we did not anticipate. They use materials and methods that predate our technological development." Thexnall did not understand. The Velkari Empire had the most advanced technology in the galaxy. How could Stone Age weapons pose any threat? Tae-ho had expanded his tunnel network throughout Seoul. The subway system became an underground city, where thousands of people lived and worked. The iron ore in the surrounding rock made the tunnels invisible to Valkyrie sensors. "We are like moles," Tae-ho told his followers. "They own the surface, but we own the deep places." He trained civilians to be soldiers using only basic weapons. Kitchen knives became daggers, baseball bats became clubs, garden tools became spears. The weapons looked primitive, but they worked against aliens when modern guns failed. Da-eun had become a legend among the resistance fighters. Her traditional Korean bow could kill Valkyrie soldiers through their energy shields. She taught others to make and use similar weapons. "The secret is in the balance," she explained to her students. "The bow, the arrow, and the archer must work as one. The aliens make their technology too complicated. Ours is simple, so it is strong." Her arrows were made by Soo-jin using ancient Korean methods. The wood came from specific trees. The points were forged using traditional techniques. Every arrow was crafted by hand with care and precision. The Valkyrie began to fear these simple weapons. Their advanced armor could stop plasma beams and explosive missiles, but it could not stop a wooden arrow fired by someone who understood the old ways. Jaemin had discovered something important about Valkyrie technology. Their artificial intelligence systems were designed to predict logical behavior, but human resistance often seemed completely illogical. "We attack when we should retreat," Jaemin explained to other resistance leaders. "We fight when we should surrender. Their computers cannot understand this." He used this knowledge to plan operations that confused Valkyrie tactical systems. Human fighters would appear to be fleeing, then suddenly turn and attack. They would ignore easy targets to hit difficult ones. Nothing they did made sense to alien logic. Mi Young's medical knowledge had revealed another Valkyrie weakness. The aliens had very advanced bodies, but they were designed for perfection. Human bodies were designed for survival. Humans could endure injuries and diseases that would kill a Valkyrie. "They are like expensive machines," Mi Young told her patients. "Beautiful and powerful, but fragile. We are like old tools, not pretty but impossible to break." Soo-jin's weapons were being distributed throughout the resistance network. Every blade she made could cut through Valkyrie armor. Every arrow point could pierce their shields. She worked 18 hours a day to meet the demand. "How many can you make?" Tae-ho asked her. "As many as we need," Soo-jin replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. "The ancestors will guide my hands." The old techniques required patience and skill that modern manufacturing had abandoned, but they created weapons with qualities that even the Valkyrie could not replicate or understand. In his command ship, Thexnal received increasingly disturbing reports. Valkyrie soldiers were afraid to patrol certain areas. Several positions had been overrun by humans using primitive weapons. Morale was dropping among his troops. "Request reinforcements from the High Command," he ordered. "Tell them the human resistance is more organized than expected." But Thexnal did not tell his superiors the whole truth. He did not mention that humans were winning battles with wooden arrows and metal knives. The Valkyrie High Command would not believe such impossible reports. Velkan brought him analysis of captured human weapons. "The metallurgy is fascinating," the science officer reported. "They use techniques we abandoned millions of years ago. The weapons have properties our sensors cannot measure." "Properties?" Thexnal asked. "Emotional resonance," Velkan replied uncertainly. "The humans appear to imbue their weapons with psychological energy. Our science cannot explain how this affects their physical capabilities." Thexnal dismissed such ideas as nonsense. Weapons were tools. They had no emotions or spirits. But deep inside, he was beginning to doubt his own certainty. The resistance was growing stronger every day. More humans were learning the old ways of fighting. More weapons were being made using ancient methods. More Valkyrie soldiers were dying from wounds that should have been impossible. Underground in Seoul, the three leaders of the resistance met to plan their next move. Hyunwoo's electromagnetic devices were shutting down alien technology across the city. Daeun's archers were eliminating Valkyrie patrols. Taeho's tunnel network was expanding into other cities. "We are ready for the next phase," Tejo announced. "Time to take back our world." The aliens had superior technology, but humans had something more important. They had the will to fight using any method necessary. They had the wisdom of ancestors who had survived countless wars. Most importantly, they had learned that sometimes the oldest ways were the strongest ways. The Velkari had conquered 847 worlds using the same tactics. But Earth was different. Earth was going to teach them that some things could not be conquered by force alone. 1 year after the invasion began, the Velkari High Command decided that War Commander Thexnel had failed. They sent Arch-Dominator Kilvarix to Earth with orders to end the human resistance permanently. Kilvarix brought with him the most powerful weapon in the Velkari arsenal. The planet-cracking device was designed to split worlds in half. It had been used to destroy civilizations that refused to surrender. Kilvarix planned to demonstrate it on Sol as a warning to all humans. After that, he was certain the resistance would collapse. Donghyun Song had been a philosophy professor before the war. Now he was one of the resistance's most important strategists. While other leaders planned military operations, Donghyun studied the aliens' psychology and behavior patterns. "They think like machines," he explained to his team. "Everything they do follows logical rules, but humans do not always follow logic." Donghyun had developed a new kind of warfare. Instead of attacking Velkari positions with weapons, he attacked their minds with ideas. He broadcast messages that confused their artificial intelligence systems and made their soldiers question their orders. Yerin Kang was only 16 years old, but she had become a symbol of human resistance. Her parents had died in the first week of the invasion. Since then she had lived in the tunnels with other orphan children. Despite her young age, she showed no fear of the aliens. "They can kill our bodies," Yerin often said, "but they cannot kill our spirit." Wonsik Jeon was 73 years old and had spent his life teaching traditional Korean martial arts. When the war began, many people thought his ancient fighting techniques were useless against alien technology, but Wonsik proved them wrong. "A gun can shoot one target," Wonsik taught his students, "but trained hands can defeat many enemies at once." His martial arts students learned to fight Velkari soldiers in close combat. The aliens' weapons were powerful at long range, but useless when humans got close enough to touch them. 1-6. Fighters moved like shadows, striking before the aliens could react. Arch-Dominator Kilvarix studied the reports from Earth with growing irritation. The human resistance should have been crushed months ago. Instead, it was spreading to other continents. Velkari soldiers were requesting transfers away from Earth. Some were even refusing to fight. "This ends now," Kilvarix declared. He ordered his planet-cracking weapon to target Sol. The massive device slowly charged its world-destroying energy beam. The resistance leaders knew about the alien superweapon. Their spies had reported its presence in orbit above the city. Most people wanted to evacuate. Some wanted to surrender. But a few had a different idea. "If we run, they win," Yerin announced at a gathering of resistance fighters. "If we hide, they win. There is only one choice left." Tejo tried to convince her to be reasonable. "Child, that weapon can destroy the entire city. There is no shame in retreating to fight another day." But Yerin had already made up her mind. "My parents died here. My friends died here. This is where I make my stand." Word spread quickly through the tunnel networks. The aliens were going to destroy Sol as an example to the world. Most people prepared to flee, but thousands decided to stay and stand with Yerin. Da-eun gathered her archers. On the surface, Soo-jin distributed her best weapons. Mi-young prepared medical supplies for the wounded. Hyun-woo activated every electromagnetic device he had built. They all knew it was hopeless, but they refused to give up. The morning of the attack, Yerin climbed to the top of what remained of Namsan Tower. She carried with her an ancient Korean flag that her grandfather had kept hidden for decades. The fabric was torn and faded, but the symbols still showed clearly. Arch-Dominator Kilvarix watched from his command ship as the human girl appeared on top of the ruined tower. She was completely alone and armed with nothing but a piece of cloth. He almost felt sorry for her. "Begin the demonstration," Kilvarix ordered. "Target the tower and the surrounding area." The planet-cracking weapon began to charge. Energy readings climbed toward levels that could split continents. In a few minutes, the entire center of Seoul would cease to exist. But something unexpected happened. Instead of running away, humans began appearing all over the city. They emerged from tunnels and hiding places carrying primitive weapons. Thousands of people walked slowly toward the alien positions. "What are they doing?" Kilvarix demanded. "Do they not understand they are about to die?" His tactical officer studied the human formations with confusion. "Sir, they appear to be attacking us." It was true. Men, women, and even children were advancing toward Velkari strongholds with nothing but knives, bows, and handmade weapons. They moved slowly and deliberately, as if they had all the time in the world. Dong-hyun broadcast a message that reached every alien communication device in the city. But instead of words, he transmitted something the Velkari had never encountered before. Pure human emotion. The signal carried the feelings of every person who had ever lost someone they loved. The alien artificial intelligence systems tried to process these emotions like data. But emotions cannot be calculated or measured. The computers began to malfunction, overwhelmed by inputs they could not understand. Yirin stood on the tower watching thousands of people join her final stand. They came from all over the city, all over the country. People who had been hiding for months now walked openly toward certain death. The planet-cracking weapon reached full charge. But when Kilvarix gave the order to fire, nothing happened. The weapon's targeting system could not lock onto the humans below. Every time it tried to focus on one target, it detected thousands of others. "The humans are not following standard retreat patterns," his science officer reported. "The targeting computer cannot predict their movements." Kilvarix stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans were not running away or taking cover. They were spreading out across the entire city, making it impossible to target them effectively, and they were all advancing toward his positions. Dayun's archers began firing at the alien ship's weapon systems. Their wooden arrows could not penetrate the hull, but they disrupted the sensitive targeting equipment. Sujin's blades cut through the landing legs of alien vehicles, causing them to crash. 1-6 martial arts fighters reached the first alien positions. The Velkari soldiers, trained for long-range combat, were helpless against opponents who fought with bare hands and ancient weapons. Their advanced technology became a disadvantage in close combat. Hyunwoo's electromagnetic devices created a storm of interference across the city. Alien communications failed. Their vehicles stopped working. Even their weapons began to malfunction. But the most powerful weapon the humans had was something the Velkari could not understand or counter. It was the simple refusal to give up. No matter how many died, more kept coming. No matter how hopeless the situation became, they kept fighting. Arch-Dominator Kilvarix found himself staring at readings that made no sense. Human morale should have collapsed by now. Instead, it seemed to grow stronger with every casualty. The more hopeless their situation became, the more determined they became. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the High Command." "Tell them the demonstration is proceeding as planned," Kilvarix replied automatically. But that was not true. Nothing was proceeding as planned. The humans possessed something the Velkari Empire had never encountered in 847 previous conquests. They had the will to endure. Yirin still stood on the tower, holding her flag high. Around her the city burned, and people died, but she did not move. She had chosen her place, and she would keep it no matter what happened. Kilvarix stared at the human girl through his ship's sensors. She was just a child with a piece of cloth. She had no weapons, no armor, no hope of survival. But somehow, she was winning. The Velkari High Command held an emergency meeting for the first time in 300 years. 847 worlds had fallen to their empire without requiring such a gathering. But Earth was different. Earth was impossible. Kyung-ho. Nam had been a history teacher before the invasion. Now he spent his time documenting everything that happened during the resistance. He interviewed survivors, collected artifacts, and wrote down stories that might otherwise be lost forever. "Why do you write these things?" asked Yoonji Lim, a former nurse who had become one of the Resistance's best tactical planners. "We might all be dead tomorrow." Kyung-ho looked up from his handwritten notes. "If we die, someone should know how. We lived. If we survive, someone should know how we won." The Velkari had been studying captured humans for months, trying to understand what made them so difficult to conquer. Their scientists performed countless tests and experiments. What they discovered shocked them to their core. Sung-woo Park had been a street artist before the war. Now his artwork appeared on walls throughout the occupied zones. His images showed traditional Korean symbols mixed with messages of defiance. Somehow, his pictures affected even the Velkari soldiers who saw them. The aliens called it quantum emotional coherence. Humans possessed the ability to draw strength from loss, to become more determined when facing impossible odds. Every defeat made them stronger. Every casualty increased their resolve. This was completely alien to Velkari psychology. When they suffered losses, they became more cautious. When they faced superior force, they retreated. When their situation became hopeless, they surrendered. It was logical and efficient, but humans did the opposite. The worse their situation became, the harder they fought. They seemed to gain power from their own suffering. To the Velkari, this appeared to be a form of insanity. Yoonji had developed a new form of military strategy based on human behavioral patterns. Her tactics seemed random and chaotic to outside observers, but they followed the deeper logic of human intuition and emotional response. "We attack where they think we are weakest," she explained to other resistance leaders. "We retreat when they expect us to advance. We do the opposite of what makes sense." Her strategies confused the Velkari artificial intelligence systems that tried to predict human actions. The computers were designed to analyze logical behavior. They could not process decisions based on emotion, instinct, or pure stubbornness. Seung-woo's artwork was spreading throughout the occupied territories. He used simple images that somehow penetrated deep into alien consciousness. A picture of a tree growing through concrete, a bird flying against strong wind, a small flame burning in darkness. These images began to appear in Velkari soldiers' dreams. The aliens had never experienced dreams before. Their minds were too logical and organized for such chaotic mental activity. But exposure to human emotional patterns was changing their psychology. Some Velkari soldiers began asking questions they had never asked before. Why did they conquer other worlds? What was the purpose of the empire? Why did humans resist when resistance was pointless? Kyung-ho interviewed a captured Velkari warrior named Tekmor. The alien had been wounded in a battle with resistance fighters. Instead of trying to escape, he asked to speak with human leaders. "Your species confuses me," Tekmor admitted through a translation device. "You fight battles you cannot win. You sacrifice your lives for strangers. You refuse to accept the logical choice." Kyung-ho studied the alien's strange features. "What would be the logical choice?" "Surrender," Tekmor replied immediately. "Accept Velkari rule. Live in peace under our protection. It is the practical solution." "But then we would not be free," Kyung-ho said. Tekmor was silent for a long moment. The concept of freedom was difficult for him to understand. Velkari society was perfectly organized. Everyone had a role to play. No one questioned the system. "What is freedom worth?" Tekmor finally asked. "Everything," Kyung-ho replied. "Freedom is worth everything we have, including our lives." The conversation was recorded and broadcast throughout the resistance network. It helped humans understand that they were not just fighting an invasion. They were fighting a completely different way of thinking about life itself. Yoonji received reports from resistance cells around the world. The pattern was always the same. Human fighters were using traditional weapons and ancient techniques to defeat advanced alien technology, but more importantly, they were changing the aliens themselves. Velkari soldiers who spent time on Earth began to show signs of what their scientists called emotional contamination. They became less efficient, less predictable, less perfectly logical. Some even began to feel sympathy for their human enemies. The Velkari High Command ordered that soldiers be rotated off Earth after short deployments, but the damage was already done. The idea that there might be other ways to live was spreading through their military like a virus. Xiongwu created his most powerful artwork on the wall of a building where Velkari prisoners were held. It showed a human hand reaching toward an alien hand. Between them was a small flower growing from broken ground. A Velkari guard named Kelvash stared at the picture for hours. He had never seen anything like it. In Velkari art, images were precise and mathematical, but this human picture made him feel something he could not name or measure. That night, Kelvash experienced his first dream. He saw himself on a world without war, working alongside humans to grow gardens instead of conquering cities. When he woke up, he could not stop thinking about what it would be like to create things instead of destroying them. The Velkari High Command reviewed reports from their scientists and military commanders. The situation on Earth was beyond their understanding. Humans were not just resisting conquest, they were somehow transforming Velkari psychology through contact. Recommend immediate withdrawal, suggested High Scientist Morthek. Continued exposure to human emotional patterns may destabilize our entire civilization, but withdrawing would mean admitting defeat. The Velkari Empire had never been defeated. Their perfect logic and superior technology had made them masters of the galaxy. Retreat from a primitive world was unthinkable. Kyung-ho's documentation project had grown into a massive collection of stories, interviews, and observations. He realized he was not just recording history. He was watching two completely different forms of intelligent life learn from each other. "We are changing them," he wrote in his journal. "But they are changing us too. We are learning things about ourselves that we never knew before." The humans were discovering that their greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology. It was their ability to remain human even under impossible circumstances. They could suffer terrible losses and still find reasons to hope. They could face certain death and still choose to fight. Yunji planned her most ambitious operation yet. Instead of attacking Velkari positions, she would send human volunteers to live among alien soldiers. They would work together, eat together, and talk together. She believed that understanding was more powerful than any weapon. "You want us to surrender?" asked one of her fighters. "No," Yunji replied. "I want us to teach them what it means to be free." The operation seemed insane to many resistance leaders. But Kyung-ho understood what she was trying to do. She was not trying to defeat the Velkari. She was trying to help them become something better than they were. Xiongwu painted one final image on the walls of Seoul. It showed humans and aliens working together to rebuild the damaged city. Above them, the sky was clear and bright. Children of both species played in gardens that grew where battlefields had been. The pictures spread throughout both human and Velkari communication networks. Some called it propaganda. Others called it impossible fantasy. But a few began to wonder if it might be a vision of what could be. The war was entering its final phase, but the outcome would not be decided by weapons or tactics. It would be decided by which species could learn to become more than they had been before. 2 years after the invasion began, Jin Suo returned to Earth with news that changed everything. He had been captured during the early days of the resistance and taken to a Velkari prison ship. But instead of dying in captivity, he had learned the truth about the alien empire. "They are not evil," Jinsu told the assembled resistance leaders. "They are broken." Haye Jinseo had been a diplomat before the war. She was one of the few humans who spoke multiple languages and understood how to negotiate with foreign cultures. When Jinsu brought his incredible story, she was the one chosen to make contact with the aliens. "Broken how?" Hyejin asked Jinsu. "They have forgotten how to grow," he replied. "Their empire is thousands of years old, but they have not changed or learned anything new in all that time. They conquer other worlds looking for something they have lost." Soonja Kim was 87 years old and had lived through many wars. In her long life, she had watched her country change from a poor agricultural nation to a modern industrial power. Now she watched humans and aliens struggle to understand each other. "What have they lost?" Soonja asked. Jinsu looked around the room at faces marked by 2 years of constant fighting. The ability to hope for something better, the willingness to take risks, the courage to change. The Velkari Empire was indeed broken, but not in the way humans had imagined. They had achieved perfect efficiency and complete logical order. Every problem had a solution. Every question had an answer. Every world they conquered followed the same predictable pattern. But perfection had become their prison. They could no longer imagine new possibilities. They could not adapt to unexpected situations. They had become so logical that they had lost the ability to be creative. Hyejin made contact with a group of moderate Velkari commanders led by Captain Velmara. These aliens had spent the most time fighting humans and had been affected most strongly by emotional contamination. Your species possesses qualities we have forgotten, Velmara admitted during a secret meeting. You can find strength in weakness. You can create hope from despair. You can grow stronger through suffering. These are not special abilities, Hyejin replied. They are choices. Anyone can learn to make them. The meeting was dangerous for both sides. If the Velkari High Command discovered their captain was negotiating with humans, she would be executed for treason. If the human resistance learned their diplomat was meeting with aliens, they might consider it betrayal. But both Hyejin and Velmara believed that understanding was the only path to ending the war without destroying both civilizations. Sunja had been thinking about the problem using traditional Korean concepts of harmony and balance. She proposed something that had never been tried in galactic history, not conquest or surrender, but symbiosis. Two different kinds of intelligence, she explained to anyone who would listen. Humans have qualities the Velkari need. The Velkari have knowledge humans could use. Instead of fighting, we could help each other. The idea seemed impossible to most people on both sides. Humans wanted the aliens to leave Earth. The Velkari wanted humans to submit to their rule. Neither side could imagine working together as equals. But Jin Su had seen something during his captivity that gave him hope. Young Velkari scientists had begun experimenting with chaotic creativity, a new form of research based on human emotional patterns. Their discoveries were advancing Velkari science faster than it had progressed in centuries. They need us, Jin Su explained. But they also fear us. We represent everything they have lost. The climax came when Arch-Dominator Kilvarix requested a personal meeting with the human who had been standing on the tower for so long. Yeren was now 18 years old, but she had never left her post on the ruins of Namsan Tower. Kilvarix came down from his ship alone, carrying no weapons. He walked through the devastated streets of Seoul to meet a human girl who had defied his empire for 2 years. "Why do you not surrender?" he asked her directly. Yeren looked at the alien commander who could have destroyed her city at any moment. "Why do you not leave?" she replied. "Because we are ordered to conquer this world, and I am ordered to defend it." "Who gives you such orders?" Kilvarix asked, genuinely curious. Yeren touched the faded flag she had carried for so long. "The dead. They tell me to remember what they died for." Kilvarix studied the human girl's face. She was small and weak compared to any Velkari warrior. She had no advanced technology or special powers, but something about her was absolutely unbreakable. "What did they die for?" he asked. "The right to choose," Yeren said simply. "The right to live as we decide to live." That conversation changed Kilvarix forever. For the first time in his long life, he experienced something the humans called doubt. Was conquest really the only way? Was there value in allowing other species to remain free? Sunja arranged a meeting between the highest leaders of both sides. It took place in the ruins of an old temple that had been damaged in the fighting. The location was chosen deliberately, a place where both human and alien blood had been spilled. "We propose a new kind of relationship," Sunja announced to the assembled representatives. "Not conqueror and conquered, not master and slave. Partners in the work of building something better." The Velkari representatives were confused by the proposal. "What would we build?" asked Kilvarix. "A future that neither of us could create alone," Hyejin replied. The negotiations took months. Many people on both sides opposed any agreement. Some humans wanted to drive the aliens away completely. Some Velkari wanted to crush human resistance, once and for all. But slowly, carefully, a new framework emerged. The Velkari Empire would become the Velkari Federation. Earth would join as an equal member. Humans would share their gift for creativity and adaptation. The Velkari would share their advanced technology and scientific knowledge. The transformation was not easy. It required both species to change fundamental beliefs about themselves and each other. Many Velkari had to learn how to make decisions based on emotion as well as logic. Many humans had to learn how to work with former enemies. Yerin, finally, came down from her tower when the peace agreement was signed. She had stood there for 2 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Her vigil had become a symbol that even the most advanced alien technology could not break the human spirit. The signing ceremony took place where the war had begun, on the landing platform of the first Velkari ship to reach Sol. Representatives from both species gathered to witness the creation of something that had never existed before, a voluntary alliance between conquerors and the unconquered. Today we learn something new, Kilvarix announced to the assembled crowd. Strength comes not from dominating others, but from understanding them. Sunja spoke for the humans. War taught us what we could endure. Peace will teach us what we can become. The final scene showed something that would have been impossible 2 years earlier. Yerin stood in a classroom teaching young Velkari students how to use traditional Korean bows, not as weapons, but as tools for meditation and self-discipline. Yes, the bow teaches patience, she explained to her alien students. The arrow teaches focus. Together, they teach balance. One young Velkari named Kethval raised his hand. But why use such primitive technology when we have plasma weapons? Yerin smiled as she drew back her bowstring. Because this bow has something your plasma weapons do not have. What is that? Kethval asked. Soul, Yerin replied, and released. The arrow. It flew straight and true to hit the center of the target. The alliance was not perfect. There were still disagreements and conflicts between the two species, but now they solved their problems through discussion rather than destruction. They had learned that differences could be strengths rather than weaknesses. The Velkari began exploring their own capacity for emotional growth. Humans began reaching for the stars with alien help. Together, they created new forms of art, science, and philosophy that neither species could have imagined alone. The title of their story had finally become clear. The Velkari had indeed feared human weapons, their guns, their missiles, their nuclear bombs. But those weapons had not won the war. Victory had come through something far more powerful, the human will to remain free no matter what the cost. That will had not only saved Earth, but had also freed the Velkari from their own prison of perfect logical order. In the end, both species discovered that the greatest victory was not conquest, but the courage to become more than they had been before. They had feared each other's arms, but they had been transformed by each other's will.